Welcome to the very first Monkey Knife Fight DFS special here on Fantasy Focused. I'm Derek Tate alongside my boy Ryan Levy as we are one day away from NFL kicking off its 2020 regular season. Boy, does it feel like I'm just glad we're here to this point. I was really nervous when we saw the whole COVID craziness, running ramshot all over sports across the nation and around the world. But Levy, we have arrived at kickoff.
Yeah, I know. It feels surreal, right? We're going to have real football. It might be a shit show. Who knows what's going to happen? But I've been confident all along, as you know, that we were going to play football. Roger Goodell was never going to take this lightly. And the rest of professional sports, albeit they're in a bubble for the most part right now, has been successful. So I'm excited to kick off the season. I've gotten through about 18 fantasy drafts so far, and I have my last 2 tonight. So yeah, that's exciting. Ready to roll, man. I looked at the point totals for Thursday Night Football, and it's insane. For week 1, I know we're coming off a Super Bowl high here, but 54.5 points on Thursday Night Football, and the Chiefs are 9-point favorites over Houston. Now, Houston's no dog. I mean, I just don't think they're that bad that they should be a 9-point dog on opening night, even though they're facing the Super Bowl champs.
Right, and they won actually the regular season tilt between the two teams just in the 2019 regular season. Of course, the last time we just saw the Chiefs versus the Texans, of course, the Texans jumped out to a 24-0 lead, and then the Chiefs went on like a 51-7 run to finish the game. So that 54 over under for total points when the Chiefs scored 51 on the Texans last time doesn't seem all that far-fetched, but I know it's the opening game of the season, Thursday Night Football, limited off-season activities. But really why we're here, and we'll talk about the Vegas spread and also the 54.5 points. So if you folks like to play those type of betting games, go ahead and do so. But really, we want to talk about our new partnership with Monkey Knife Fight, who is also starting their first round of DFS prop bets. Now, if you're a DraftKings or FanDuel or anybody else type person where it's just really total fantasy points, this gives you a different aspect of playing fantasy sports on a weekly basis. So if you have not yet done so, go to monkeyknifefight.com. Use the promo code FOCUS when you make your first deposit, any deposit of $50 or more. Monkey Knife Fight will automatically credit your account with an additional $50. Look, I love myself a little Monkey Knife Fight. I want to say it's time to go fighting every single week, but we're ready to go here. We have our picks for the first game of the 2020 NFL season.
Yeah, for sure. If you guys haven't played before, I like it a lot. I got my my feet wet, if you will, with NASCAR a lot, and I played some baseball on there, and golf is big for Monkey Knife Fight and all that. What I do like about it is, you're playing against the house essentially. So you're not playing against all the industry sharks. You put up a 200-point performance in DraftKings and you lose into some guy that's got 80 lineups in there in a huge contest, right? So it's pretty simple. You get 2 out of 2 on the more or less, aka over under props. You can do specific things like receptions, yards. We'll get into that. But you can also do fantasy points. So for me, I really enjoy it. You get 2 out of 2 and you're getting 3x your buy-in in most cases. So I think that's pretty good value, good ROI there. And it makes games a little bit more interesting. But for me, I look at the over under totals and the point spreads just to kind of get a gauge of what Vegas is expecting in terms of scoring. So to see a 54.5 point opener on Thursday Night Football, we should be throwing a lot of mores into our lineups, right?
That's the idea. I'm hoping, but I mean, it's really unexpected. We don't really know a ton about game plans. We haven't seen any preseason action. New rookies, Clyde Edwards-Helaire for the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to obviously talk about him on this episode. But as far as the over-under for 54.5 total points, just to kind of make sure, do you have the over or under on the total points to start off before we get into the
Listen, if I was a gambling man, I would stay away from this point total. I'd probably take a teaser or something like that. But for me, I am never going to be the guy that's betting the under, especially when we're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. And on the other side of the ball, we're still talking about Deshaun Watson, right? Who can do a lot. He can put a team on his shoulders. He can run. He can have a huge game through the air as well. But For me, I'm just never going to take the under on anything related to the Chiefs. It just doesn't feel right. Yeah, and I'm talking about from a fantasy individual performance perspective as well. Like, I don't care if you want to set the over under more or less on Patrick Mahomes at 375 yards. Are you really going to root against this guy? I just don't want to be on that side of the ball ever. Life's too short to bet the under, Tater.
I get it. I understand. But when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs being 9-point favorites, for me personally, I feel like that's way too high for a team that jumped out to a 24-0 lead. Say what you will, because obviously Bill O'Brien just got outcoached and they got Patrick Mahomes there in the AFC divisional round last year. But I mean, they still won a game at Arrowhead just last season, did the Houston Texans. And I know they lost DeAndre Hopkins, but I would say that they got an upgrade at running back with David Johnson. Now, granted, the one concern, though, they added Randall Cobb, which will be active for this game. But, Brandon Cooks is dealing with a quad injury. So that is one thing to keep an eye on. The guy that is supposed to help replace some of the production that they've gotten out of D-Hop is potentially going to play, potentially not going to play. Will he be limited? We'll have to keep an eye on that. But Will Fuller is healthy. So let's go ahead and start jumping into this monkey knife fight. Let's start making our picks here, Levy. This is what the people want to see. How are we going to make some money with monkey knife fight? We'll start with the more or less. This is pretty simple. If you haven't played yet on monkeyknifefight.com, they pick, they had the passing yards set for Mahomes at 339.5 yards, and then for Deshaun Watson, 285.5. So give me your more or less. You get I believe it's 3 times your buy-in, whether that's 5, 10, 20, 50, $100, whatever you want it to be. You get 3 times your buy-in if you hit on both players. So how do you see this playing out?
Right. So it's tempting, right? Like they always want you to lean more on Monkey Knife Fight. I've learned this the hard way in NASCAR because like they set Harvick or Hamlin at 19.5, 20 fantasy points every Sunday, and these guys dominate and they win. But like, in NASCAR, you're only getting 1/10 of a point for every lap led. So you got to look at starting positions and this and that. But if you look at last year, for example, in both of these games, I know there was a win and a loss in a dominating comeback in the playoffs there for the Chiefs, but Mahomes didn't throw for more than 340 yards in either of these games, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it was 273 in the regular season. And then in the playoffs, it was 321, even though he threw for 5 touchdowns. So he didn't necessarily need to throw for more than that. So 340 yards is a lot. And for me, if I'm looking at the point total, I'm still going to take more here, but I'm going to be careful, right? I'm actually, we'll get to this later in our picks, but if you're looking for a bigger unit play, you want to put more money on something, I like the over or the more in fantasy points for Patty Mahomes, which I think is set around like 26, something like that, which seems high, but I basically have Mahomes projected. I'm going to lean more here, but I think he can realistically throw for 350 yards, 3 touchdowns, and like 38 rushing yards. That's what I have him projected for. So that puts him over on fantasy points and yardage. I think it's going to be really close on the yardage, though. I don't know that I see 400 yards from him on Thursday Night Football.
I mean, even think about what he did in that AFC divisional playoff game where they came storming back from a 24-point deficit, and he still didn't even top 340 yards passing when they were playing from behind by 24 points, 3-score game. And Mahomes still didn't hit that mark. Could he, if it's a shootout between him and Deshaun Watson? Of course he can. I mean, Mahomes can do that any game, but that's really way too high for my liking for the very first game of the season. Now, granted, the biggest weakness I think the Houston Texans have on the defensive side of the football is their secondary. So how are they going to play it out? I mean, it's kind of always a pick your poison when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs in defending them on the defensive side of the football. I mean, are you going to try to double Tyreek Hill? Are you going to bracket coverage him? Are you going to bracket coverage Travis Kelce, who absolutely shredded this defense in the playoff tilt? So I'm leaning less for Patrick Mahomes at that 339.5 passing yard mark. But on the flip side, I've got more for Deshaun Watson. One of the things, Levy, when it comes to, kind of trying to predict these prop bets is really being able to accurately predict game flow. And for me, I just feel like the Chiefs are going to really put it on them offensively. I don't really see how the Texans are going to be able to slow down Patrick Mahomes and company. I know that, like we said, it's a high point total. Vegas is set for the opening game of a weird offseason in the National Football League. But Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, even though Kelsey has been dealing with a little bit of a knee injury, and Tyreek Hill is nursing a little bit of a mild hamstring strain. It looks like they are both going to be good to go for opening night. So for me, I'm going more because I think that the Houston Texans are going to fall behind. Deshaun Watson's going to have to throw the football to keep them competitive. And I mean, as much as DeAndre Hopkins' loss is going to hurt the Houston Texans offense as a whole in this game, I still think that Will Fuller is going to do quite well. Hopefully Brandon Cooks is available in some capacity, but if not, Kenny Stills isn't a terrible alternate option. And of course, you got Randall Cobb working the slot and two capable pass catching backs out of the backfield.
Right.
So for me, I think that Watson hits the over trying to catch up to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, I'm with you on the more for Deshaun Watson here. I also see them playing from behind. I do think they cover the 9-point spread. I don't see the Chiefs winning this game by 10 points. I see the Chiefs winning. I see like a 6-point victory, maybe even a 3-point victory. And I naturally want to lean the over even on the point total. You said you were going to go more on Deshaun there, though, right?
I know. I got him wrong. Okay. I got him wrong. Here I can't read. My apologies.
Yeah, for me, though, for my own account, my own Monkey Knife Fight account, full transparency, I'm not playing this contest. I'm going to play the fantasy points because I think they both go over on fantasy points, but we'll get to that in a bit. So what do we got next up here?
Well, I just decided to go ahead and shoot me off on that. So let's go to rapid fire. I like rapid fire. We'll get to fantasy points over under here in a second, but rapid fire is also an interesting one because you can kind of pit people against each other. Let me go ahead and mark this down a little bit. So we got basically two players going against each other, and kind of like Vegas odds, you get one player that's going to be getting certain amount of yardage, receptions, whatever the contest is going to be about. So for example here, Patrick Mahomes passing yardage, is he going to have more passing yardage than Deshaun Watson? And Watson in this case is getting 35.5 additional passing yardage in this matchup, kind of like a handicap. So for me, I easily think that this is Deshaun Watson if you're giving him an additional 35.5 passing yards.
Oh man. This is another one I won't be playing because I just don't have it in me to go against Patty Mahomes. Like, I'd never want to put any money, fantasy, real money, whatever you're playing. I just don't ever want to bet against this guy. I truly think he's elite. I think Deshaun is in that next tier of quarterbacks. Like, it's Russ Wilson, Kyler Murray, and Deshaun Watson for me in like tier 2. So for that reason, like, I'm not going to likely play this. I would put $5 on this, but 35 yards, Patty Mahomes can do on a dump pass to Travis Kelce. So to me, I'm gonna go Mahomes on this side just because I don't want to play against this guy.
And that's totally fine if you want to stay away from a contest like this. I feel confident that there's a possibility that Watson could just out yardage Patrick Mahomes. This isn't fantasy points. This is out yardaging total. So again, game flow feels like it's going to be in favor of Deshaun Watson racking up more yardage than Patrick Mahomes. So for that reason, I would give the tilt to Deshaun Watson in this case. You move to receptions. I'm taking Travis Kelce all day over Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill's only getting a half reception kind of like handicap here. So I'm going with receptions going towards Travis Kelce, who is a much higher volume target guy than I like for Tyreek Hill. Is more of a boomer bust type player. I mean, he's still great. Don't get me wrong. But Kelce feels like he consistently sees more targets and more receptions than Tyreek Hill.
For sure. Yeah, I agree with you 100% on this one. I think the upside for yardage total is higher for Tyreek Hill. I could see him with a 4 or 5 catch for 117 yards and a touchdown type day. But I see Kelce like 7 for 89 in a score. That's the type of line I see for Kelce. So in reality here, if you don't understand how the spreads work in terms of fantasy points or receptions, whatever, in Monkey Knife Fight, we just need Kelce to have one more catch essentially than Tyreek Hill, because Kelce is a half a reception favorite over Tyreek Hill. So one more catch than Tyreek all day, unless for some reason the Chiefs are fallen far behind in this game, but in that case, Kelsey could rack up a lot of catches too. So I think that's an easy choice for me.
And then for receiving yards, just real quick, Will Fuller versus Sammy Watkins, again, 20.5 yard kind of handicap there for Sammy Watkins. Give me Will Fuller. I mean, Will Fuller, when healthy, is a quality receiver, and he's a big play threat. And now you're telling me a guy that's caught 5 passes in both of last year's games against the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, I understand that maybe the quality and efficiency of those targets isn't going to be quite as high without D-Hop on the other side, taking some of that attention away. But Will Fuller is still a guy that can get open, certainly a threat to blow the top off of any defense. Watkins, yes, he can play. He's a big play threat, but, Mecole Hardman, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Kelsey, Hill, do I need to keep going? It's very hard to predict when Sammy Watkins is going to go off.
Right. I'm with you 100% on this, especially with the news on Brandon Cooks. We don't even know if he's going to be a go or a full go, whatever the situation is. I expect a big game out of Fuller. So get him into your lineups, take them more on yardage and receptions. The only thing we agree on here of these three or disagree on is the Watson Mahomes, but I think you can go either way on that one.
Okay. So if you haven't played Fantasy Challenge yet, here's how it works on monkeyknifefight.com. For Fantasy Challenge, you have to hit a goal of either 57.5 fantasy points to get double your buy-in, 63.5 fantasy points to hit 3 times and get 3 times your buy-in, and then 71.5 fantasy points will get you 5 times your buy-in amount. Now, here's the thing that when it comes to the scoring on monkeyknifefight.com, which we have not yet discussed, passing touchdowns are 4 points, 0.04 points for every passing yard. Interception gets -1 point. Rushing yard, of course, done on a fractional basis, 1/10 of a point every time you gain a yard. Same thing for reception yards. Rushing TDs and receiving TDs, both 6 points. 1 full point per reception. So that's worth keeping in mind. Return touchdowns also get a bonus. 2-point conversions, 2 points, and then a fumble lost is -2 points. So it's always good. Now, there's one thing that's going to be a little bit different than something like DraftKings. You don't get that bonus if you hit the 100-yard total for receiving or rushing yardage, and then the 300-yard passing total, I believe it is on DraftKings, went for quarterbacks. So did I say that all eloquently?
You did. So scoring wise for quarterbacks, I guess it's somewhat confusing, but I play in a lot of fantasy leagues and so do you. So basically it's 4 points for every 100 passing yards. So simpler way to think about it. So I did the math earlier, for example, on Patrick Mahomes. If I believe he's going to throw for 350 yards, that would be 6 points, right?
Correct.
And then I have him down for 3 touchdowns. So that's 4 points per passing touchdown. That's 12. So we're up to 18 already there. I've got him at, 37 rushing yards, I said. So for me, I want to get a quarterback in here. What about you?
Well, you can't. That's the thing. I was going to tell you.
Okay.
Have you even looked at it? Because, come on, man. You got to do your homework here, baby. No. So, basically it's taking all the skill position players. You have to draft one from each team. So you can't just, if you think the Kansas City Chiefs are just going to blow the top off of the Houston Texans defense, you can't do the triple stack with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Kelsey, and Hill. You have to pick one from both teams.
So if I'm picking one, I got to get Will Fuller in here this week.
Yeah, I think that for me, it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire. The difference is I would love to be able to get David Johnson into the lineup. If you're get both starting running backs, generally that is a recipe for at least a high fantasy floor to get double your buy-in back to hit that 57-point mark. But in this case, I just think that Kelsey presents so many matchup issues in that Houston secondary that I almost want to go Edwards-Helaire, Travis Kelsey, and I think that playing from behind, I want Will Fuller over David Johnson this week.
Okay. No, I'm totally on board with Kelsey for sure, and Fuller, obviously. I mentioned Fuller a couple times already. What I'm nervous about Edwards-Helaire, man. We've been talking about this guy since the draft, and you were high on him before the draft, and naturally he landed in a perfect spot, right? So this is a guy that's going in the first round in every fantasy draft that I've seen in the last month. How disappointed is the industry going to be if this guy doesn't show up on Thursday Night Football with a double-digit fantasy performance.
It could be devastating. I'm not going to lie. It'd be pretty disappointing if Clyde Edwards-Helaire against the Houston Texans doesn't at least get into the double digits. I think that he will, though, man. Again, you look at someone like Kareem Hunt and how he was used his rookie season. And the draft capital wasn't even the same with Kareem Hunt. Still, people thought, oh, well, Spencer Ware's there and so on and so forth. Yeah, Spencer Ware, my ass. Like, I was aware that it was going to be Kareem Hunt's job eventually there in Kansas City. Sure. And it ended up being the same thing right out the gates. Damien Williams did everybody a huge ass favor, unless you wanted to, get the value ADP-wise on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But he did everybody a favor by clearing up the muddiness in this backfield early on, by opting out of the 2020 NFL season. So for me, I'm all in on Edwards-Helaire. I think he's going to be the quintessential poor man's Brian Westbrook, his rookie season in this Kansas City offense that should be right in the top 5 as far as total scoring goes and total offense, as far as yardage and points go on.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Trust me. You sold me all offseason, and I've got several shares of him. So I'm surely rooting for the guy. But there's this little piece of me that wants to sabotage my own teams and just see the guy not be as good as everyone thought he was going to be, not a top 10 back. And what's going to make me even happier is when DeAndre Washington catches 5 balls tomorrow night, and it's going to be awesome.
All right, that's fine. I mean, I know we have a season-long bet about DeAndre Washington. By the way, if you really, truly believe in DeAndre Washington, you can pick him for this fantasy challenge, which I guarantee
that would be wild.
You won't be doing.
I won't do that.
So now we can go to what they call touchdown dance. So essentially, it's the same exact type of premise, but you have to hit a total amount of touchdowns scored by players that are available to pick here, which are all skill position players. Again, with the exception of quarterbacks. They remove them from the equation. So you have to basically pick right when it comes to who Mahomes is going to find or who Watson's going to find for passing touchdowns, or again, rushing touchdowns do count. So here's the thing. You get 2 times your buy-in if you are able to pick 3, basically someone or a collection of players that can score 3 touchdowns. You get 5 times your buy-in if your players can score 4 touchdowns or more. And speaking of 4 touchdowns or more, if they hit 5 touchdowns, you get 15 times your buy-in. So, but obviously touchdowns are one of the toughest things, if almost damn near impossible to predict. But this is where I would actually go with David Johnson over someone like Will Fuller, because I think that if you're giving me the odds of who is going to have a better chance to score a touchdown this week, I always kind of am going to give the nod to running backs, just because they get carries inside the 5-yard line, as opposed to receivers who are kind of, target dependent in goal to go situations.
Right.
Will Fuller is a big bodied receiver that's going to be able to just post up and throw him a back shoulder.
Right. Yeah. It's just how do you predict when Will Fuller has one of those 3 touchdown games? Because
right.
He's having 1 or 2 of them this year. There's no doubt about it. Will Fuller is going to score 8 or 9 touchdowns, even if he's not healthy, because he's going to have 2 games where he scores 3.
Yeah, Fuller's a tough one to predict, but I would go with David Johnson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and really Kelsey. Kelsey's
okay,
the guy. Kelsey's the guy I feel the most confident of all the pass catchers will be able to find pay dirt.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. But if you're going with the 5 touchdown approach, you want to hit a home run, you like the long shot plays, the true mush play. I would definitely make sure that I have Tyreek in there with Will Fuller, because those are both guys that could have multi-touchdown games, and then I would probably pair them with either Kelsey or David Johnson. That would be my long play.
The touchdown one is interesting to play this week because, again, it kind of that ties back into the point total being set so high when it comes to 54 total points. I mean, you're talking about around possibly 7 touchdowns being scored. I mean, I don't think that Mahomes or Watson are going to run for multiple scores or anything like that. So really, it's just being able to pinpoint which players have the best odds of being able to find pay dirt. And if you want to run a stack where you have the 2 running backs and Tyreek Hill, or the 2 running backs and Will Fuller, then that totally makes sense to me. It's just, I personally, what I saw Kelsey do to this secondary last postseason just makes me go, I think he finds the end zone.
Yeah, I'm with you for sure. I dig it.
So now we can go to reception collection. We're not going to go through every single contest here, but I want to highlight some of the ones that are a little bit unique as far as right here so again, this is pick 3 players and they have to hit either 19 receptions for 2 times your buy-in, 21 total receptions for 3 times your buy-in, or 23 total receptions for 5 times your buy-in. You're the target hog king. So, I mean, who do you see being the 3 players to lead this game in total receptions?
Oh man, there's no doubt Kelsey is number 1 for me.
I'm with you.
I think he's got 10 or 11 targets and minimum 7 catches. So like my favorite play, which we're going to get to soon, is more on Kelsey receptions and more on Fuller yards. Just on the more or less two out of 2. So I'm going to go Kelsey. Man, I'm going to go Fuller.
I'm going to go Fuller too.
Yeah, I think with Cooks banged up, and I'm not a Randall Cobb guy, honestly, even though I think he might have some sneaky value this year. So those 2 are a lock for me. And then it gets a little bit dicier for me.
It gets murky. It gets murky right around this spot. I mean, I feel confident that these 2 players will probably get you 14 receptions between the 2 of them in Travis Kelce and Will Fuller. But now you gotta get that 3rd player that's going to catch somewhere around 5 to 7 passes in their own right.
You said it's 19 and a half?
I mean, 19 is to be able to get 2 times your buy-in.
Okay, so I feel like Tyreek, if you feel like these 2 guys are going to get 14, if it was 19 and a half, I don't know what I would do. But if it's 19, right? So yeah. I believe Tyreek is going to catch 5 balls. That is what I have him projected, like 5 for 117 and a touchdown.
This is where it kind of comes into play with a slot receiver when they're playing from behind. Randall Cobb makes a little bit of sense here for me, to be honest with you. With no Brandon Cooks as well, I think that you're going to see either targets go in his direction when they're playing from behind, or another guy that is kind of chronically underrated is Duke Johnson. I mean, Duke Johnson's a very high-quality pass-catching back in the National Football League. I would probably lean to go Tyreek Hill just because I do think he's going to get his regardless, but it would very much so intrigue me. I feel confident that, getting Cobb in your lineup would be somebody that I'm also confident you could make money on that as well. If they're going to be playing from behind, I think that Cobb is going to be somebody that's going to be heavily involved.
I like it.
So, but let's go ahead and move to some of the bigger reward plays. And we talk about, now you said the more or less 15 times your buy-in for fantasy points, right? This is the one that you want to really target in on?
Well, I think my play of the week, like a smaller play before we get into the bigger ones, I've already put money on this one, so I like it. I have more or less just 2 out of 2, and this is only 2.2x your buy-in, so it's pretty easy to me. It's more on 6.5 receptions for Travis Kelce. And then I have more than 72.5 receiving yards for Will Fuller. So $10 wins you 25 on that.
I'm trying to find it. I'm trying to find the exact contest. They've got a ton. I mean, that's one of the cool things about Monkey Knife Fight. They have a ton of different plays that you can try to find. If you don't like a specific contest, they have other prop bets for many of the higher quality caliber players that should be involved in a random week. So I'm trying to look, man. I do not see that specific contest. Did I skip it already? Have you been able to find it? I'm wanting your pick of the week here.
It's somewhere like it should say more or less 2 out of 2. I can't find it on my screen anymore because I've already played it. So it won't let
more or less 2 out of 2. That's fantasy points, more or less. Sorry about this, everybody.
There it is.
It's just that Levy decided to go ahead and throw me a curveball here. And I'm blaming you. I'm not really blaming you, though.
It's okay. Well, let's do one of the bigger ones. I do have I put $10 on a rapid fire 4 out of 4. So 10 wins you 60. So 6x your buy-in. I like that.
Okay. So rapid fire 4 out of 4. This is the one you're talking about?
That is the one I'm talking about, sir. So I've got Mahomes over Watson plus 4.5, correct?
Yes.
And that's fantasy points. So for me, I've already given my projection on Patrick Mahomes and his stat line. I think he throws for 3 touchdowns, over 350 yards, and 37 rushing yards. So that should put him over there. And I don't know Watson's going to do as good as that. I do believe Watson finds the end zone on the ground. And then the second leg of that, I have Kelsey over Hill.
Okay.
Third leg there, I have Edwards-Helaire over Fuller. Oh, wait. So that one's different than mine.
Well, do you have Edwards-Helaire over Watkins? 2.5 fantasy points.
I do.
I think that's cake, dude. Yeah, easy.
And what's
and
the
David Johnson versus Will Fuller?
What's the point total or the difference there?
Will Fuller is getting a half a fantasy point.
I'll take David Johnson and a half a point.
Yeah.
If it was 1.5, I'd probably go Will Fuller. Like if I had, the 1.5 point cushion, because I do believe Fuller has a good game. I've got more than 72.5 receiving yards for him. But I just think David Johnson with fantasy points, he's going to find the end zone for sure.
Okay. I like that. And again, that's 6 times you're buying if you're able to hit on that. For me, I'm going big or going home. I'm going more or less 30 times you're buying. And I'll make the bet right now. I don't give a shit.
This is the mush bet. I'm following this.
What's that?
This is the mush bet. I'm following you on this.
Okay. So, I mean, they actually adjusted some of the lines. So you got to pay attention because it's not uniformed across everything. This one, they have Mahomes at 320.5 passing yards, which makes me a little, because I could have sworn when I was reading this yesterday that on this one, it was 339. It was the other one. It was the opening tilt. But right here, I just still believe that Mahomes isn't 320 is high to hit if you're already playing with a lead heading into the fourth quarter. So for that reason, I'm going to go less on Mahomes. I'm still going more on Deshaun Watson at 285.5 passing yards. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, rushing yards, 59.5. Give me that all day. Kelsey, they originally had receptions at 6.5. They changed it to receiving yards on me. 85.5 is a little bit high to get to, but for that, I still think that the reception total is going to be high. I just don't like the receiving yardage. But if he's going to catch 7 passes, is he going to get to 85.5 yards when he shredded this defense last season in the playoffs? Yes, I think he will. Tyreek Hill, 5.5 receptions. I'm interested. I mean, I'm going Will Fuller more on 4.5. He caught 5 passes in each game last season. Tyreek Hill's the interesting one because he can really, really have a monster day, or he's that volatile player that if he just gets loose on this secondary, which he definitely very well could, 5.5 receptions is very doable for him. I'll let you go ahead and make this final call because again,
I got to stick to my projections here, right? So I said 5 for 117. So I'm going to take less on Tyreek, even though I hate fading any Chief, as you already know. But I do want to bring up a point here because I just went back and checked. It's crazy how fast the lines can move. So we're posting this video on Wednesday. The game's not till Thursday. If you're watching this video on Wednesday, when we started this show, the Mahomes total was at 339.5. And I just went back and looked. Even Mahomes versus Watson. Watson's line did not move, but they felt Mahomes' line was too high. We're line movers around here, Tate, because it is down now to 320.5. And I know
so it's still correcting. I'm fighting the analytics computer too. That's not good, but I mean, we're okay. I'm still going to go with the less on 320. I still think that's a pretty high number for him.
That's fine. So my 30X is going to look different than yours. But yeah, I like what you have here. I just think for me, I'm also going to go more on Kelsey because I think I said 7 for 87 or 89 was my projection for him. So I like this. I like our odds here, Tater.
So that'll do it for this one. I'm actually officially going to, log this one in too. So, I mean, I'm submitting, baby. I'm submitting. And by the way, if you have not yet been able to submit your account to create one over on monkeyknifefight.com, of course, go ahead. Use the promo code FOCUS when you make your first deposit of $50 or more. Again, Monkey Knife Fight, they want you to play. They want you to make money. So, well, I mean, they also want you to, play. So that's kind of the point. But the point is, I think that we have a lot of good picks that I feel really damn good about. about this game. But if you have not yet done so, go over to monkeyknifefight.com. Again, use the promo code FOCUS. $50 will be matched in your account on your first deposit when you use the promo code FOCUSED. So, Levy, my friend, that will do it for our very first episode of Monkey Knife Fight DFS picks here for the upcoming 2020 NFL season. If you have not yet done so, subscribe so you don't miss any of the fantasy football content that we have here on the YouTube channel. Again, you can find us on Fantasy Focused on Instagram and on Twitter. You can find myself at DTater4 on Twitter and Instagram as well. So any sign-off thoughts? I'm just going to say good luck. And life's too short to be whoopsie.
No, I'm excited, man. We got don't forget to join us live on Sunday mornings. We're going to be live every single Sunday for the NFL season. We will be live from 10:30 to noon Eastern time. So you got 90 minutes of us for week 1. We got myself, we got Tater, we got Buckey, we got Samantha Holtz. We got the whole crew, all 4 of us in for week 1. Should be fun. It's going to be a really good time. But yeah, looking forward to Monkey Knife Fight this year. We're going to crush it. I'm fading DraftKings and FanDuel this year, and I'm playing against the house, and I'm taking them down. So let's go.
Let's do this, baby.